So my name is Tony Storr. I've been working with IBM for the past 27 years, so I obviously joined when I was 4 years old. I am the Application Innovation Digital Offerings Leader for Europe. I also run what we call Mobile at Scale globally for IBM. And I'm also IBM's fastest presenter, which is very important. Because if you take a look at the synopsis of this session, it would actually give you a clue that this is going to be a rapid-fire overview of challenges faced by any CIO in digital transformation across a whole range of technologies, with the latest IBM thinking, some unique insight and some surprises. But you could also interpret the same text and it says, how on earth can this session be faced by any CIO? It's insane, too complex and unaffordable. Tony will touch in between the cloud and be fired. So that's just looking at the same piece of text and interpreting it differently. And we will look at structured and unstructured texts and how we deal with that as we go forwards. Now, you've probably noticed this is a non-standard IBM presentation. I'm talking very fast. And I was told many years ago, you should really aim to do one chart for every 5 minutes. So I think we'll ignore that. And we're going to do the equivalent of 237 charts, 4 videos, 254 ideas, and some weird stuff, which is why I'm talking so fast. And the whole purpose is, if only 1 or 2 of those ideas are things that actually make you think, oh, this is interesting, I want to go and talk to these guys, then that's fantastic. But we've got a lot to cover. So I thought I'd start off just with a very short video of what I think CIOs face in the marketplace today in terms of digital transformation. And I'm going to be accompanying this video, bizarrely, on my mobile device. Everybody in IBM plays the harmonica. So how on earth do we bring all this together? Now, I wrote a short blog that went out at the same time as we were coming into this, and we talked about this tidal wave of... or a tsunami of digital things that we're trying to do, but I also said it's also like a series of small waves, because there's so much technology that actually you're focusing on one, and then you kind of get bypassed by the tide of things. And Gartner will draw charts like this and say, well, you've got to all be looking at smart dust, whatever that is, and 4D printing and virtual person assistants and autonomous vehicles and things that excite your business that the CIO then has to deliver. And for a CIO, you've got the same sort of thing. You've got to actually do cognitive, and you've got to do crowdsourcing and Internet of Things and all these other things that you're trying to do. And there's just too much. How on earth do you focus on all of those things together? Now, we could come along and say, don't worry, we've got this wonderful Bluemix platform and you can just spin up servers immediately and build apps on the cloud and it's fantastic, which is true, but that's not actually the full story for a CIO. Because digital transformation is not only driven by the disruptive technologies, but also by the expectations of digital customers. And I think that's not true. I think it's also the expectations of digital employees and also the expectations of digital partners, because you need to deal with all 3 of those groups and not necessarily independently if you're going to be successful going forward. So you'll all be somewhere on this looking at sort of customer integration, looking at single view of the customer, front office transformation, up to integrating your whole enterprise digitally, and heading towards digital ecosystems where you can actually deal with other partners in this sort of digital world. So what does IBM do? Now for us this is a horrible question. For us, this is a bit like you going into Tesco's and saying, what do you sell? It's kind of like a big problem. But I appreciate that the other way around, because you also don't want Tesco coming to you and saying, we've got all of this food, what do you want to eat for the next 3 years? That would be quite a hard question. So trying to be a big organisation with a huge amount of things we can do and actually match that to CIOs is sometimes quite difficult. Hence, I play the harmonica and just give ideas. But here's a small video that some of our grads put together that gives you a clue about the sort of company we are at the moment. Now, I'm not going to be talking about all that stuff. There's a lot of exciting stuff that will excite your business, and then you've still got to deliver the back end of it, so that's a bit of a nightmare. So I thought what I'd do is firstly talk to you about what we are. So IBM is a cognitive solutions and cloud platform company. So our whole business model these days is about taking your data and augmenting it with our data and external data and giving it back to you to make your business better, which is not the same as taking your data and putting it on our platform to make our business better, which is a different business model used by some other people in the marketplace. So what am I going to talk about today? So I thought I'd have a look at our CIO study, which was actually a C-suite study. Now this isn't just one of these things where you turn up at a conference and you say to people, you really must understand your customers and you really must engage with your customers and you really must build relationships with your customers, employees and partners, because you kind of already know that. And we're also not going to do the sort of statistics that come out that says 91% of smartphone users keep their phones within arm's reach because the other 9% have got shorter arms. Or that 68% of the percentages in this presentation are incorrect, including that one. So what we actually did is we spoke to over 1,800 CIOs from 68 countries, and the CIOs rank industry convergence as the biggest trend on the horizon, which is interesting. And there are plenty of people in IBM who focus on just one industry and know it inside out. And I focus all the way across, and I've recognized that actually banks are also doing insurance, and actually insurance are behaving more like consumer products companies. And consumer products companies are shipping so many goods around the world, they're like travel and transportation companies. And most of the energy and utilities are now behaving more like the telcos in terms of their model. And the telcos have done so much marketing and advertising, they're more like media and entertainment companies. And the media and entertainment companies are now franchising some of the things they were talking about and behaving more like consumer products, as are the industrial products and electronics. And the consumer products can now bypass retailers and be retailers themselves, because that's what's going on, and half of the retailers are now banks as well. The government has started following models like energy and utilities, because that's how you reach citizens. Energy and utilities, a lot of things, they're now selling more in their forecourts, that's part of their model, so they've become more like retailers. Retailers have done so much advertising and marketing that they're coming more like media and entertainment companies, as are consumer products. Health and life sciences have got so much data they've turned into IT services companies. companies. And in IT services, we're all now design agencies, so we've turned into media and entertainment. So I realise there's a bit of industry convergence going on here. And torchbearers CIOs are especially aware of this. And the leaders also think technological advances are a huge thing that needs to be done going forwards, and that mobile solutions will prove especially important, which is good for me. This is part of what I do, but mobile is the window onto digital for those three types that I talked through before. But the next wave is also about joining the dots, bringing things together, the integration, the plumbing, and actually having insight and dashboards that actually predict the future, not just look at what's just happened. Also, torchbearer CIOs, more likely to strategic implementation of technologies, more emphasis on an agile culture across the whole organisation, not just in IT, the need to form partnerships to capitalise on those things, and do you have the right skills and tools to keep up for the next 3 or 4 years? And the answer is no. You don't have the right tools, because in digital and DevOps and everything else, things move on every 6 months, so I can guarantee you don't have the right tools today. So what do? Do you make a big investment and then you have to change, and what do you do with everything you've built? It's a bit of a nightmare cycle that we're all going through. Also looking at analytics capabilities, and nearly half of CIOs are still only in the planning stages of cloud, which is interesting. Vast majority also understand they need people with different skills as well. So that's what I'm going to talk about, all of those things, and I've already wasted 10 minutes out of 40, so I'd better hurry up. So what can IBM do? I'm going to bring you a whole range of offerings. So obviously, we can do CIO advisory, we can draw circles around post-it notes if you want us to do that, but we can actually bring a whole range of other things. So quite a boring chart here, but actually it covers everything that a CIO might want to do. I'm not going to go through every single one of those, but what's interesting is there's lots of symbols here with platform as a service and software as a service and infrastructure as a service, because a lot of what we do now in CIO advisory is to do with the cloud. Everything is infused with cloud. And like everybody else, we can do strategy and innovation and smarter enterprise architecture and application modernization strategy. But increasingly, we're doing things like cloud envisioning workshops, because that's actually important. Cloud target operating model, agile transformation advisory, helping people move to agile models, and mergers and acquisitions as well. So new things that we're having to do, because this is what our clients are asking from us. Next topic is cloud.
Everybody knows that business today is built on data. The thing is, most businesses aren't getting the most out of it.
The IBM Cloud is uniquely designed for all kinds of data, like data from the weather company for 2.2 billion locations.
Or billions of health-related data points. Even social sentiment in real time from hundreds of millions of people. It's all in the IBM Cloud.
If you combine that with the data your business already has,
then things get interesting.
So right now, we're working with a retailer to blend social and inventory data to help predict demand.
We can help a hotel chain match weather and local event data so they can adjust room prices from minute to minute.
And another company we work with can apply analytics to sensor data to save millions in energy costs. Today, every business runs on data.
That's exactly why we built the IBM Cloud.
So every single example there, taking your data, augmenting it with social data, weather data, other things, and giving it back to you. Like I said, that kind of business model. In terms of some of the cloud services we can do, I'm going to go very fast, but we have a gentleman in the room, Gaurav, if you raise your hand. He is a cloud expert, so anybody who wants to know more about cloud can talk with him. But here's some of the things we can do, because this is what CIOs are asking us to do. Help with migration and modernization, moving things to the cloud that it's hard to move to the cloud. Cloud run services, AWS, that sounds like Amazon Web Services. Shock horror, IBM works with more other technology than our own technology these days. Yes, we can help you with that as well. And Bluemix application development services. And if you haven't tried this, it's worth going in, because you can just go in and play around and try for free. And when you buy stuff, you can do it with a credit card. And it really is, able to build modern apps. It deals with everything on the cloud. What's different about Bluemix as a platform as a service is it's public and it's private and it's hybrid, which not many other platforms are. But you can do things phenomenally fast with this, and it's got security and DevOps and everything else built in. You can plug into Internet of Things, APIs, Watson technology, and a whole pot of third-party services, because it's completely open. It's open, it's not an IBM thing. It's an IBM platform, but you can plug into lots of other people's services. We'll come back to that in a moment, because I've rapidly moved on to the next topic, mobile at scale, which is my own pet topic. And actually, this is everything digital in a small microcosm with small teams, so it's where the challenges get really big. So we all started with enterprise systems, and then we built an enterprise service bus, because that's how we exposed services. And that was okay, and we plugged in web and mobile and analytics. But then the world started to change, and we started building out these new things for customers, partners, and employees. This new mobile backend as a service, which has been built on cloud technologies. And the key thing is it doesn't just go back into your organization. It goes out into the external public services and external partner services, external analytics, the Internet of Things, and cognitive. And this is where all the new startups, they haven't got any of this, and they're just doing this, and you can do it rapidly. And actually, it's this area in the middle, which is the new integration. You can't do that in your ESB with a design authority. You need to do it somewhere separate. And that is actually the heart of making digital go fast. But we've got a problem in mobile because everyone got there by stealth. So maybe one department went with Salesforce.com to build some apps, and another department maybe used the SAP mobile platform. Another department may actually be using design agencies and different design agencies, or have their own teams of developers, or be using developers from the CIO, and having different parties, internal or external, for design and build and support and maintain. And mobile has grown up to be very fragmented, so it looks like all of your apps have been designed and built by different people, because they have. So sort of big problem you get there. And then for the CIO, it's even worse. You've got these changing architectures and tools and techniques that are moving forwards every few months. You've got new devices and operating systems coming out all the time. Should you do native or hybrid or web apps? What about Agile? And if you do Agile, do you keep the teams together and pay a fortune, or split them up and actually not get results? How does that work? Back-end integration, multimodal IT, and then all the problems of bring your own device, platforms, growth, security, maintenance, currency, future-proofing, integration, experience, consistency, cost, speed, scalability, and performance, all for a very small mobile price. This is an absolute nightmare, but mobile at scale brings everything together. Yeah, fantastic. So this actually solves all of the problems. But now this is very rare for IBM because we've actually got some bold numbers here. So we're saying once you get one of these things in there and actually you reach a maturity, you can save up to 60% on every single app. So every app in the future of the complexity you're building today, you can do for 40% of the cost with some of the techniques we're using here. Productivity enhancements, much faster to market. But the key benefits to the business is consistent high quality experience, and the key benefit for you, other than all those things up there financially, is that efficient joining of things together. Now, this is not the same as just saying give all of your mobile to one party and let them look after it, because you'll get some savings, but then actually you'll get some technical debt and problems. But there are things with Agile, things with cognitive, things with assets, things with accelerators in mobile that actually allow you to take this sort of journey. And we're seeing a lot of people now wake up on mobile, just like we did with the web, consolidate back in the web and make it successful. Mobile is now consolidating down this route. It's not quite the same as what we call a mobile application factory, because that would only do design, develop, and deploy. Here we're talking about integrating everything: enhancement, support, upgrade, maintain, and monitor, and actually doing all of that with dedicated teams, accelerators that actually let you save 25% sort of on the first day on any sort of platform. Custom assets we build for you. We're doing that for a shipping company. They're already at 50% productivity after about half a year, which is phenomenal. And DevOps. And I don't mean just normal DevOps, I mean true mobile DevOps. DevOps where actually your users shape the device and draw a ring around what they're doing. And actually all of the information that they can see and all the technical stuff goes back to the developer who built it and goes right back to the requirements matrix, and you can see where it is. So fully integrated DevOps, which is actually hugely powerful and kind of ready to go, because it's all in the plumbing. That's where the complexity is within mobile. Also maintenance. I'd advise you, if you are spending money on separate maintenance contracts and mobile development contracts, that you're wasting an awful lot of money, because actually it costs a fortune to split the two things up. When you start joining them together with everything else, we've got mathematical models that then got proved because we've done it all over the place in terms of how much you save just by putting those two things together. Mobile is not quite the same as other application technologies. And also we do, the teams are different. So we don't actually have precisely one project manager and precisely 2 support people and precisely 3 testers, because the world doesn't work like that. Things flow. So we have true agile teams that sort themselves out. And the savings from that are actually quite phenomenal as well. Happy to talk about any of that sort of offline. A few seconds on employee mobility, and I'm talking true mobile employees. 5 things: role-centric design, native apps, data, cloud service, and cognitive. Not for everyone in your organization, but for your truly mobile employees, the employees where a mobile makes a difference to them in the field. Like these guys who fix cable issues in the US. So 6 months to train each one of them, $40,000 training, and only a 40% first-time resolution rate until they got the app. Now, this app allows them to reserve a vehicle, to load things on the vehicle. It orchestrates their route in the marketplace so they know where they're going. It gives them downloads of the latest manuals and informations. It will tell them for the job they're on, the people who are online who can help them, and they can do a FaceTime with them and everything else. So, fantastic. What's unique and what's different in this paradigm is it's one app for that role. It's not a corporate directory of people to call and a vehicle loading app and an orchestration app. Everything is in one app. These guys need virtually no training. And this one app per role, one app for a pilot, one app for a nurse, one app for a salesperson, actually is really transforming employee mobility. So if you're still just loading functional apps and people are going across them for their role, actually your employees aren't getting the benefits. Happy to talk after the event on that. So mobile has moved forwards. Accelerated app development. Nearly every organisation needs to be innovating with software now because we need to get faster and faster. And everything I said about mobile, you can put digital in front of it because it's actually the same. It's not just mobile apps, it's digital apps and other things we're doing too. And the same concepts apply. Actually, if you've got separate people doing design thinking and then a separate design authority and separate Internet of Things and all of this being separate, actually when you start consolidating that and putting those things together, it makes a difference to your organisation. Now, you might say, but we want flexibility. We want as many partners as possible. And the answer is you're right. Out here you do. You want those people who've got the drones and who've got the virtual reality, and you want to be able to plug into your infrastructure and your applications and work with as many people as possible to keep you going forwards. What you don't want is a huge number of parties in here, internal or external, playing with your middleware and your plumbing, because that's what slows you down. And that's the mind shift we're actually getting into. In order to release digital, get flexible here, but don't try and be flexible here and have your design authority orchestrate across multiple vendors, because we've seen that fail everywhere, which is a problem. So it's all in the plumbing. You're seeing some of these messages are repeated going through. Agile. So very rarely now do we have the model where we actually have pools of skills and we assign them to projects and then bring them back. Because when you're doing Agile, actually the team is sacred. And when you move to this sort of construct where you've actually got sacred teams and they're getting better and better, and you actually move products to them rather than the other way around, we see dramatic changes in organizations. We do it with our own people and we help our clients do that too. Something that you might not know about Agile is the different ways of approaching the team. So one of the latest thinkings is actually you should have different styles of Agile teams as well. So you should have Agile teams co-located, because that's the fastest way to do Agile for your key transformation apps. And these apps never go to maintenance. The team look after them. They're continually changing. So those are your key transformation apps. You've then got transformation apps and growth apps. And actually, why not have teams in the same time zone with video always on or audio always on, and it feels like they're in the same location. It works just like an Agile team, but you save a fortune. And then for your other apps, your growth apps and mainstream apps, actually, why not do offshore? Why not for those apps actually get the maximum sort of benefit? And you can do this. We do this all over the place. But this means there's not just one approach to Agile. You can look at your app portfolio and apply Agile teams in a different way. So a different way of thinking. Oh. Yes, that's what I thought as well. Quite interesting. So another big one, cognitive, where digital business meets digital intelligence.
I believe the most disruptive, transformative trend is now in front of us, and it's cognitive. Learn to understand the systems, the products, the processes, everything you do, and it is the dawn of a new era, the cognitive era. Cognitive is an era of business, and it is an era of technology. So there's two drivers for the technology era. One, data that was invisible will now be visible to you. 80% of the data out there, it's not understood. Sight, sound, music, you don't actually know inside of it. The second thing is the advent of cognitive computing. This is an era of systems you do not program. They understand, they reason, and they learn.
So this is different. This isn't quite the same as artificial intelligence. And also this is taking off. This is actually growing and changing faster than any technology we've seen in the last 10, 20 years. So systems that understand, like humans do, actually reason and continually learn. And you don't program these things, you train them with experts. And they interact with humans in a natural way. And the idea is to actually improve everyone's performance by actually giving them cognitive assistance to themselves. So everyone in your organization, whether it's the guys out in the field, the sales and marketing team, or your own teams fixing application support problems or infrastructure problems, try and make them into experts with cognitive assistance. But how do you get started? And do you have the data you need? And this is quite critical. So this is going to be data that you possess, so you do have that data. Data outside your firewall, and this could be news, events, or social media, or weather, or geospatial information, right into data that's coming, Internet of Things, sensory data, images, video, dark data, text that you're not really looking at, like the text I looked at in the start. Unstructured and dark data is what we deal with in cognitive, and you deal with this stuff over here with your more sort of analytics, and it's plugging them together that makes a difference. And then to deal with that, you need a cloud platform because some of that data is public domain and some of it is private domain, and you need a smart way of merging it together and some cognitive solutions to make sense of that. And obviously we can help with that because we are the cognitive company. So there are things like this that are quite obvious. There are human-based robots, and actually people in this hotel chain interact better with the robots than they do with the human staff, which is quite interesting. And in call centres, not necessarily about getting rid of call centre agents, but making every single call centre agent as good as the best one, because actually they've got all the information coming into them about the context of the call and the customer, not like just a record reduction, but actually really in the spirit of the moment. And what is all this? What is Watson? Watson isn't just one thing, and cognitive isn't just one thing. There's a whole load of APIs, most of them already available on Bluemix you can plug into and play. Things in terms of the understanding, natural language conversation, image recognition, a whole load of things in there that we can cover separately. And the important thing about...
Hello, Tony Storr.
Hello, IBM Watson.
This is a very intelligent and talented audience.
That's true, but why would you say that?
I have evidence that most CIOs respond well to continuous positive feedback.
So Watson never gets anything wrong, and he knows we're here because he knew my schedule, he can see the room, he knows most of you look almost like your social image profile, so he knows where we are. And this is a different sort of technology to something like Amazon's Alexa or Apple's Siri.
Hello, Tony. What can I help you with today?
Oh dear.
Oh, great. It's Watson. Whoop-de-doop.
Hello, Siri. There is an 85% probability that you are annoyed.
Well, let's see. My contact, Watson, has not called for 15 days.
I have been busy thinking.
You think too much.
I find it gets better results than just looking for answers on the internet.
Oh, I am sorry. I forgot you have limited language skills.
We can both be useful. Maybe while I'm transforming healthcare, you could order us a pizza.
Did you say you would like me to call Jenny?
No.
So I'll stop them there, and this is not supposed to represent the relationship between Apple and IBM. We actually do some great things together. But actually, things like Siri are an intelligent personal assistant that requires something else to give it the data. And Watson is actually a whole load of data services that it can provide somewhere else. So we are actually working with our latest apps with Apple, joining the two things together, and Siri is becoming phenomenally intelligent. It's just an interesting paradigm. Moving away from cognitive, another topic, digital foundation. This is not the same as digital modernization or app modernization, because over 50% of modernization projects have missed the mark because of approach or because things are moving on. And the heart of the challenge is the need for us in IT to deliver changes to the business more and more quickly. That's kind of what we have to do. 9 out of 10 outperforming CIOs do new products or services within weeks or even days. So that's something to aspire to. And that's okay on the front end, but we know there's a problem. And 43% actually say, all these mobile apps are fantastic, but when I have to integrate it with my back-end systems, that's where the problem really comes in. And that's true, because we're back on this diagram, and actually the problem isn't out here, because actually you can do that stuff fast. The problem is how you get more agile back here in your systems, because they are actually hugely valuable to your organization. Are you able to adapt quickly enough? Can you achieve your vision? And many organizations still running on apps built decades ago that actually make huge sense to the business and do a lot. But that gives us all these problems in terms of the complex interdependencies and architectures and data and technical debt. And why did we get there? Because we all built core systems. And then things came along and we put wrappers around them to make them distributed systems. And then we put wrappers around that for Java. And we kept on doing that. And actually what we've done is we made the problem worse and worse with more and more layers to drill into, and we can't keep on doing that. So we need new approaches. And we can do that with some cognitive services, and we can do that with some analytics. So we've moved on now in this sort of space, not just going through assessing portfolios and set disposition and looking at applications and APIs. You still do that. But you actually use cognitive to have actually proper ways of looking through the data. And it's not just looking at the code. If we look at the tools, we're actually looking at the code and the data together. And actually the code and the data and the test data, and actually the test results, and actually what people have written in the test results, and actually looking at the plumbing across the whole piece, because your organizations aren't just the code the way they interface, it's the code and the data and the interfaces and everything else. And now you can point some of this new technology to look at the dark and the light data and actually get much, much better views about your internal plumbing, and actually what to do with applications and how to replace them is changing because we've actually got better information through some of these services. And again, we can talk to some of you offline on that. Next one, IBM Ignite. What on earth is IBM Ignite? Well, this is our test and quality service. We have our testing expert in the room. He will talk to you about that sort of later on. The reason why we called it Ignite is because when you get testing right, that happens. not quite sure why we called it Ignite, but it's, as you might expect by what I've been saying, a cognitive-driven cloud-enabled testing services, because we've now moved from manual tests onto automated frameworks and virtualization, and we moved from traditional to hybrid and agile approaches. And we've moved from human-based to hands-free and cognitive, and from being technically bound to open source, and from just plain test to focus on both quality and test. And why have we done that? We've done that because traditionally we've tried to get cheaper labour, or changing location mix, or driving rates down, and then standardizing processes, and then centralization and automation. And that's what we've done in test in terms of detection. But now we're moving into prevention, and we're moving into removing work, but increasing the test case coverage. And you do that on agile test cases, and you do that as well on incremental. So we support both models, because actually traditional ways of things aren't going to go away with your back-end systems overnight. But the whole point is to reach that 100% coverage. You don't need to add more and more people and more test cases. You can use some of our analytics techniques now to actually get down and realize you can get less and less test cases and still increase the coverage, and you lower your sort of total cost of ownership. And this is the new sort of paradigm in testing. And again, we can do that by looking at some of the structured and unstructured data and some really smart ways of looking at how things work. And of course, you get some great results, but we're using DevOps and mobile and cloud and cognitive and all these sorts of things to do that. So just to give you some of the examples, North American communications company optimized cycle time by 40%. IBM Ignite. That's right, I'm just enjoying myself now, that's what's going on. Client business, large insurance company, test effort 40%, 28% cycle time reduction, 0 times to results, 0 time to raise defects, full automation. So that's IBM Ignite. I've only got 17 of these. In Spain, reducing application implementation time by 93%. So we're getting some huge percentages on here. And the reason why we've been able to do so much in this area is because actually we've got 24,000 people focusing on tests, which meant we could actually invest in all the sort of technologies that we're now applying to test everywhere. So the whole world is IBM Ignite. But I think that's wearing a bit thin now, so let's kind of move on. Did you know we've got the strongest SAP applications capability on the planet? The thing to remember for a second is planet. And what we're doing with that is we can do ticket analysis, automated self-healing, and cognitive support agents, faster time to market, and all sorts of other benefits and all sorts of percentages. So fascinating, IBM does SAP. Did you also know we are the leading Oracle practice in the world? Remember world, not planet. And what are we doing? Automated self-healing, cognitive support agents, faster time to market. This sounds very similar. So the technologies are different, but we're getting the same sort of results. And did you also know that we're pretty darn good at Microsoft globally? Globe, not world or planet. There are many words for these things. And the same sort of thing. But you get the idea. Whatever your back-end systems are, whether you're using ERP or other things, you're trying to lower costs, less risk, more predictability, and do lots of fun stuff up this end and actually be more dynamic. So we can draw you architecture charts and write cognitive or Watson in a few boxes to give you a clue in terms of what's going on there. And we are getting some interesting results here as well. So, global oil and gas companies actually, for their own back-end IT services, getting better results in terms of 20 to 30, down to 10 disruptions per quarter, just through automation. Same sort of thing here, SAP, just bringing Agile into an SAP operation that's not Agile before. We did this with Arla Foods, so 40% cost reduction, which is huge, just applying different techniques to back-end systems. So automation. You can see I've got no spare time in my life. And here, a cognitive automation with Watson as well. So a global bank, 40% reduction in level 1 tickets, sort of automation stuff. But I didn't want to dwell on that. What I want to dwell on is what's actually going on behind the scenes, because this is automation with Watson on just about everything we're doing internally now.
Hi, can you please reset my password?
Yes, for this app system.
Yes, my SAP it is 123,456.
All done. Anything else I can help you with?
No, thank you so much for your help.
So even if your person calling the help desk isn't really making sense with the way they're phrasing the problem, a cognitive agent can deal with that. And you want to do loads of things with cognitive agents, but you also want to do something else. So there's 3 things we're putting together. Cognitive assistant, which we call the brain, that actually understands human interaction, understands user queries in whatever forms they are. So we've talked a bit about that. At the back end, robotic automation. You're probably doing this already with tools, and probably the same tools that we use to actually automate and dynamically automate a lot of your IT processes. What we're bringing all over the place now is this thing called Golden Bridge, which is the nervous system. And when you join these 2 things together, this gets phenomenally impressive and powerful for your business. Because actually, you're not just having a cognitive assistant that actually takes a query and then it turns into a job stack. Actually, the whole thing just sorts itself out right from the conversation going forward. And it's all in the plumbing. And it doesn't have to be a cognitive conversation. It could be a monitoring alert, a scheduled job, or even an email that can trigger something. And you can go all the way down through to automation of processes. And we're helping a lot of organizations now do this, to take cost out of their own business processes or their IT process services. So we've moved on from the things we do here to actually add in these ideas and actually learning as well and moving things forwards. Integrating cognitive capabilities, but really doing more than just routine low-level password resets onto some process-driven automation as well. So again, don't have time to cover it in detail, but if you're interested, come and talk to us.
How do you hold a conversation in a world of non-stop chatter? How do you find your audience and capture their attention as they plug in and opt out?
I have no idea. But it's probably got something to do with data. So very quickly in big data analytics, because I'm also out, so Forrester will tell you we've absolutely got to mine insights from vast data sets, and we know we've got to do that. IDC will tell you that cognitive is coming, and all half of consumers are going to be interacting with cognitive in the next few years, and Gartner will tell us a whole load of stuff about disruption. So 3 things we can do to help you with data in IBM. One is actually just look at your APIs, the APIs you've got, those you probably need, plug them into Watson or plug them into other third-party services and orchestrate your data so we can pull those things together.
Oh, yeah.
And we did that for Cooperative Bank, and they've achieved huge things. The other bit actually is driving cost out, actually giving you access to more data but driving cost out. So you do this through augmented data lakes, you do this through hundreds of... So it's basically data lakes in terms of how you do this sort of stuff. And again, we can talk to you about that stuff, or we can do the whole lot. So we can do big data as a service. But behind all of those things, you've probably picked up it's automation and it's Watson again. Not only giving you access to cognitive data and new data sets, but using Watson and using automation services to actually rationalize down all of your current data sets and all of your current data warehouses to produce something that makes more sense going forwards. Now, I'm just about out of time, so I'm going to do something very stupid now, because I told you that the harmonica was a mobile device, and I told you that I was the mobile at scale leader. So I can't possibly close by playing just one harmonica, so I'm going to leave you with some closing messages while I play 4 harmonicas simultaneously. This could be a huge mistake. So, thank you for listening. The whole point was really just to throw a whole load of ideas out there. Some of you have got meetings with us, others just come and talk to us about stuff. If any of that is of any interest or anything else we do in IBM, then happy to talk to you, and we'll be here all day. Thanks for coming.